Drug dealers don't buy their own products. So why are you buying all the conventional dating wisdom that's being sold out there? Any relationship you create with a woman is predicated on this shared narrative. It is a story that is created by you and her together. And you have to be the architect of that story. You need to be pragmatic and intentional about what it is that you're creating. It's not a matter of lines, tactics, and gimmicks. The traditional advice that's being peddled by traditional dating and relationship advice. But the reality is, there's a darker side. There's a trap that so many men, including myself, have fallen into. And if you fall into it, you will lose yourself. Let's start off with a little bit of background so we understand what we're talking about. What we are actually doing with a woman is we are creating a story with her. Every relationship that we have is really just a story that's being written by two people. And that story is built through the narratives that you share with each other. The story isn't about what you do so much it is about what you feel when you are together. So for example, two couples could do exactly the same thing. They go on dates, they spend time together, they travel together, they spend time with friends, but the emotional story can be completely different. So one story might feel like an adventure. It might feel like romance and passion and discovery, whereas the other one could feel like an obligation. It could be boredom. It could be confusion or emotional distance. You can see already that each one of these paints a wildly different picture of what the relationship dynamic is actually like. And the difference is in the emotions. So if we know what the story is, we can begin to understand how the experience is created. The story you create together carries emotional weight. And this is what psychologists call emotional association. And it's where she begins to associate the feelings that she feels when she's with you with you. Whenever she hangs out with you, whenever she hears from you, she begins to recall those emotions. So I don't want you to focus on the words that you say or the things, the specific things that you do together. I want you to focus on the emotions. How does it feel when you are together? Years later, she absolutely will remember the restaurant you went to, the things you talked about, the food you had, the drinks you had, the exact sequence of events of what thing led to another when she was with you. And why is this? Because you made a lasting emotional impact that allows her to recall those facts much more easily. But she absolutely won't remember that super boring date with that boring logical guy. A perfect example of this is really any wedding. You can ask the bride what her first date was like, and she will recall every detail. But if you ask her to recall the most boring date she's ever had, she probably can't. And if you're liking this so far, go ahead and hit the like button. And go ahead and leave a comment as well. Let me know your thoughts. And yes, I do read them. So that was just the first piece. Now let's see how this plays out. You initiate the story, and she follows. In every romantic dynamic, there's a leader and a follower. The man typically initiates the direction of the emotional story, and the woman typically follows. What you're essentially saying when you do this is the emotional experience that I want to create with you. Do you want to come with me? And then she decides. She decides if she wants to participate in this story that you're creating. This is very often exemplified at weddings when the maid of honor talks about her relationship with the bride and ultimately how the bride and groom met and the experiences that they had together. So it's usually something very full of emotion. You know, me and the bride, we go way back. We had all these experiences together. We were close friends as friends could be. We knew each other so well. We did all these wonderful things together. The times we had were unforgettable. And then she met him. And that, by the way, is where your romance story begins. And you will introduce your romance story through your narrative. You're going to build that with her. But here's a very common mistake that men make. They think attraction is what you do together. So some examples would be things like nice dinners, constant texting. Oh, this is the worst. Right? The phone is a convenience for you, not to make you a convenience for her. So yeah, over texting is huge. Extravagant or expensive gifts. I'm not against gift giving, not at all. In fact, for the women that I'm dating, I often like to do things. I love to make things and provide things, and it's part of who it is. It's part of what it means to be a man. It feels good. But buying extravagant gifts kind of feels like you're just buying your way into her pants. And also excessively planned activities or even vacations. All these things, yes, they matter because they provide the structure for the emotions to happen, but it's not the things that make the relationship. It is the emotions that create the relationship. And the attraction that the two of you feel for each other is based on the emotions you have while you are doing those experiences. So there's this idea in New Age pickup of emotional spiking, and it absolutely works. And the idea is simple. Women respond primarily to emotional stimulus. So that could be an experience, it could be emotional contrast, okay, something like a push pull, all right, emotional stimulation of some kind, right? An exciting experience, but definitely not logic. Women respond and build attraction off of emotional experiences. Women become attracted when their emotions are strongly stimulated. And this could be positive or negative, it doesn't matter. And this manifests itself as either complimenting or the dreaded negging. The reason why negging is so vilified is because it's too openly negative, right? If it's less openly negative, we would consider it to be a tease. But what matters is the emotional engagement. It's not logical narrative. It's not just the words that are coming out of your mouth. And as guys, this is what we'd like to focus on. We think that it's the words and the content that matters. But the reality is it's about the emotions. It's the emotions she feels when she's with us. So flat emotional energy is the real attraction killer. So now we know what makes an emotionally compelling story, but we still don't know how to create it. And that's where the narrative comes in. Narrative is simply how we express ourselves. It's a story that we communicate about ourselves so that the other person understands who we are. And you are communicating your narrative at all times. Even when you don't think you are always communicating it. You express it through how you talk, the words you choose, the things you value, your sense of humor, how you respond to various situations, and so much more. People don't get to see your entire life. They only see the parts of it that you reveal through your communication, right? That's why I call it narrative and not, your life story. And an effective narrative is one that's intentional. It's one that you've designed and you're projecting it with a certain degree of design. And it's honestly super easy. You just need to be aware of it so you know and understand the things that you're communicating. So you get to decide the parts of your life story, the parts of your personality that you express to help them understand who you are as a person. And your narrative should communicate things like what kind of man are you? What kind of experiences do you value? What kind of emotional world do you live in? How do you feel about things? And what kind of relationships do you want? But there's a critical mistake that so many men make. The reality is women are not attracted to perfection. They are attracted to things that she can emotionally resonate with and connect with. So when you try to communicate with a woman and you try to communicate things that you think are attractive to the woman and they may or may not be, it makes you unrelatable. And honestly, this is what most conventional dating wisdom is all about. It's about telling you what to say and what to do in very niche, very specific circumstances so that you can get the girl to like you. And that's backwards. And this is why I focus on frameworks, not rules, so that you can relate them with your own circumstances. If you want to know what you should do in your specific circumstances, then reach out. I'd love to help you. I'll put details in the description. So this next part is going to tie everything together. The narrative that you bring to the relationship, to the woman, and that you express with her becomes the story that you have together. The emotional experience that she has will be shaped by the emotional themes and energy that you introduce. By the way that you frame your experiences, it's the stories that you tell. It's the things about yourself that you express, that you tell her. It's the values that you communicate. So in essence, your narrative becomes the foundation of your relationship identity. And that's why it's so important that you focus on making your narrative one that is productive. But here's the dark secret. She doesn't know who you are. When you meet a woman, she has no idea who you are. She only knows the narrative that you choose to communicate. Your entire identity to her is based off of this communication, even if it isn't true. And this is the basis of old school pickup advice. And this is where the stereotype of the sleazy pickup artist comes in. But it understood something important. Attraction is predicated on perceived identity, not your objective identity. It's who she thinks you are, not who you actually are. And this pickup culture tried to engineer perceptions by teaching men things like pickup lines and by teaching men scripted lines, texting schedules, and texting structures, canned routines, and other artificial behaviors. The assumption behind this advice was you are not naturally attractive, so we need to manufacture it. And while some of these techniques absolutely work, and they've worked for me, they run into a much deeper problem. They disconnect you from yourself. You begin to try to perform, to play a character rather than express yourself. And this leads to all kinds of problems. Things like overthinking, anxiety, fear of saying the wrong thing or doing the wrong thing, constant self-monitoring. That's that death loop of self-doubt, of questioning whether or not you're saying or doing the right thing, loss of identity. You forget who you are. You spend so much time performing that you forget who you are as a person. And even the concept of buyer's remorse. The idea that when a woman finds out who you actually are, she's going to regret it. This was something that was baked into the education structure of old school pickup and even some newer circles of dating advice. I tried to follow the correct rules and I studied and I learned and I tried so hard. But the reality is, like, I just kind of lost myself. I forgot who I was underneath. I never learned how to express myself. And the greatest tragedy out of all of this is losing yourself in pursuit of being more optimal. So surface level advice is really meaningless without a story. The story forms the basis of everything. So advice like, when to text, how long to wait before calling her or asking her out on another date, or even what to say on a date, what to say over text. Okay. While all these things are important, unless you have the context, it's meaningless. And the context is provided by the story that you are creating together. So here's the bright side. The real solution is authentic expression. You don't need to manufacture attraction. The attraction either is there or it isn't. She may need to discover it within herself, but attraction's scientific. It's there. You just have to not fuck it up. And you need to express who you actually are. When you communicate correctly, the right women will be attracted to you. And the wrong women will lose interest very quickly. Remember, both outcomes are positive. You want the right women in your life. You need to find people that fit who you want to be in your life. And that comes down to defining your story, defining who you are. Alignment needs to come first. The results needs to come last. Most men try to figure out how to attract women, when the reality is that's backwards. You need to understand yourself first. That's the real first step. You need to ask yourself questions like, what do I want? What kind of relationship would I be happy with, fulfilled with? What kind of experiences excite me? What kind of woman would fit into my life? And this is where your values come in, and understanding your values, understanding your core components of your personality. Your life is the story. You need to understand your values so that you can build a life story that's compelling, that pushes you in the directions that you want to go. So you have the relationships with the types of people that you want, and you get the kinds of things that you want with these people. Remember, you are the main character in your story. You are the protagonist. The more clarity you have about your story, the easier it is to communicate. Once you know who you are, what you value, what kind of story you're living, and your aims and goals in life, the communication becomes simple. You're not trying to impress her. That's not the goal. The goal is to invite the right woman to participate in your story. And it's up to her to decide if she wants to be a part of the story or not. And that can only happen when real attraction and real connection can exist. And that can only come from authentic expression. So if you want help transforming your dating life, making it like nothing you've ever dreamed to be possible, you can reach out and I'll put links in the description. If you could like the video, leave a comment if you have any thoughts. I do read them. I'd love to hear from you. Otherwise, I'll see you guys next time.